Hi, everybody. Welcome to my Ask Me Anything. Thanks for being a part of this. Got a real good show for you today. In a little bit, I'm going to listen to some music submitted by my Patreon subscribers and YouTube members. Going to try to do like a constructive critique situation. But before we get into that, I wanted to go through some of the softball questions that were submitted ahead of time. I like to warm up with some like easy ones before we get into the real issues. All right, so let's go right in. Here was a great early one I got from Instagram. This is from someone whose username is unpronounceable. And the question is Six Flags Great Adventure or Dorney Park? Love this question. I'm going to start by saying I respect both and I admire both. I like amusement parks. I like roller coasters. I like Dippin' Dots, the ice cream of the future. I see that at like Dwayne Reed sometimes. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's like ice cream, but it's a bunch of little crumbs. It's like instead of just ice cream, it's a million tiny little particles, each of which is ice cream. I was first introduced to this at like a Six Flags, and because of that, it's like always been associated in my mind with roller coasters and stuff like that. So I just like it, and I also like how much like the gimmick is like, meaningless. Like whoever thought to themselves like ice cream is good, but it would be better if it was a bunch of little crumbs. It's just like completely gratuitous. Anyway, I see that at like Dwayne Reed now, and I'm like, should I do it? But then a part of me feels like you can't do it because that's cheating on Six Flags. I feel like it's wrong to do that outside of so as you can see, I have like a bunch of really highly superstitious beliefs about this shit. So I love this question. Six Flags Great Adventure, of course, is the Six Flags that's in New Jersey. The tallest roller coaster in the world, King Dakar, is at the Six Flags in New Jersey. And Dorney Park is just some shit in Pennsylvania. So as you can see, my answer to this question is Six Flags Great Adventure. It's because I'm from New Jersey. This is like a Jersey pride issue. I like Dorney Park. I have been there. I was being flip a second ago when I said it's just some bullshit in Pennsylvania. It's a great amusement park. I've been there. I've had a good time. But forced to choose, I choose Great Adventure because of New Jersey, and also because it's got the tallest roller coaster in the world. That's not my favorite ride there. I like King Dakar. It's not my favorite. My favorite ride is Nitro. Nitro is not like the tallest or the fastest or anything. It's just good, I think. Like Nitro, like sometimes I talk about pedals on my channel and I'm like, this one just has it. Like it just sounds good no matter how you set the knobs. And that's kind of how I feel about Nitro. You don't go upside down. There's no curlicues. There's no like trendy bullshit. There's some trendy bullshit I like, but Nitro is like, it's just like an old school roller coaster that I love. So I'm saying Great Adventure for this reason. Look at what happened to this person. I had a Dippin' Dots slapped out of my hand by a stranger. So much trauma associated. Yeah, that's upsetting. It's upsetting for me to hear about this. It's like, possibly more upsetting than the Will Smith Chris Rock slap incident. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it continues to upset you. I'm a little curious to know how you handled it. Obviously in the moment it can be hard to react in a way that you're like totally happy with. I think that's something we can all relate to. I'll just say this, I don't think it would have been out of line for you to retaliate physically. I'm not saying that you're a wuss if you didn't do that. And I'm not even saying that is what you should have done. Legally speaking, maybe it's good if you did it. But for me, I wouldn't lose respect for you if that's what you had done. And then look at this guy. So yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. No surprise. If you like roller coasters, I recommend checking out Cedar Point. Yeah, in Ohio. Yeah, that place is amazing. My dad's family is from Ohio, so I've been there on some like family trips and stuff. I mean, that place is like a roller coaster lover's amusement park. Like Cedar Point has so many roller coasters that like you could go in one day and maybe not ride all of them. So yeah, no, Cedar Point is amazing. It's been a long time since I was there, but that place is great. It was like a prank. I think they filmed it. Oh, that makes it more offensive, doesn't it? That's really upsetting. You know, I could say a lot or a little about this. I'm gonna try to say a medium amount about it. I just think that this is just disgusting to me that people are doing stuff like this and filming it. It really upsets me. Um, People who know me in real life or know what the next thing I'm gonna say is. The next thing I mean is because I say it all the time, and it's annoying if you know me in real life to hear me just turn every conversation into what I'm about to turn this conversation into. Um, what I'm about to turn this into is anyone who's watched The Sopranos knows that throughout the series, anytime Tony Soprano gets fired up, he says, "Whatever happened to the strong silent type?" He just says that whenever he's like infuriated, and like any social commentary turns into whatever happened to the strong silent type. And I have to say, like, I understand that, like, Tony Soprano's problematic. I get it. I don't just love The Sopranos because I watch it in order to worship Tony Soprano. That's like not my relationship with that show. I mean, people don't always believe me when I say that, especially because of the type of shit I'm about to say in a couple seconds. But like, let me just start by saying, like, Tony Soprano is like a very flawed person who does a bunch of bad stuff that's bad. Um, but I don't think he's completely wrong when he says whatever happened to the strong silent type. Like, I myself often wish we lived in a society that had more strong silent types, you know? And I feel like smacking a Dippin' Dots out of somebody's hand and filming it as a prank is weak and loud. That's how I interpret that behavior. So it's one of those times where, like, I lament the fact that we don't have more strong silent types walking around. Um, okay, take that how you will. I'm gonna hold that there, but if you want to push further into the some of the other social ramifications of what I just said, feel free to call for that in the comments. In the meantime, um, oh, look at this. I didn't retaliate. I was in hot water already that year legally. That's amazing. That's incredible. I love that. That's okay. Good. Good that you pumped the brakes without knowing. Please don't tell us anything else. That's my request. Do not clarify that statement one bit. It's so good if we don't know anything about what the rest of that story is. I think that's amazing. I mean, I'm seriously tempted to use that. Like, if it ever happens to me, if some asshole ever smacks Dippin' Dots out of my hand and films it, I might say, listen, normally I'd retaliate, but I'm already in a lot of hot water this year legally, so it's your lucky day. That's incredible. That's just incredible. Okay, well, I hope it worked out for you. I mean, I'm guessing it's okay. I'm guessing, like, the fact that this is something that happened to you and you're now able to watch a live stream on YouTube and comment about it means that you were not, for instance, like, killed by lethal injection as a result of whatever hot water you were in legally. Like, I'm a little bit guessing that the fact that you're here now and you're like talking about it on a YouTube live stream means that the hot water you were in legally is, like, not the kind that it's not worst case scenario, but I do hope it worked out for you. Just remember, you got a friend in me. Um, will you get the Chase Bliss Onward? I have one. I haven't even opened it yet. I do have one. I haven't opened it yet. I like Chase Bliss stuff. I'm sure I'm gonna like this one. I don't totally know what kind of video I'm gonna make about it. I'd be more interested in making a video about it that is like talking about a larger class of pedals. Some of you might have noticed that that's what I do now more. Instead of talking about this one pedal, I talk about reverb pedals in general. That's the video that came out yesterday. Or delay pedals in general, or fuzz pedals in general. I'm gonna try to summarize a little bit. Due to details of the YouTube algorithm and how my channel has grown and what the analytics are telling me, those videos are a better bet than just like this particular pedal 5 pro tips. So I got to figure out how to, like, make a larger thing about Onward. If anyone has any ideas, feel free to tell me about them. But yeah, no, it looks like a cool thing. In the long run, I feel karma will not be denied to these losers. You're talking about the guys who smacked the Dippin' Dots out of our friend's hand. Evan Ward, I have to tell you, I just don't share that. I mean, it would be cool. It would be cool if it were true. But I'm just never optimistic about this. You know what I mean? I mean, just think about how many people got away with a bunch of terrible shit. Look around. You know what I mean? Like regardless of what side you're on, and like regardless of who you think the bad guys are, like it seems pretty obvious to me that you're gonna see the bad guys getting away with it. So um I'm glad that other people think the karma thing could kick in at some point, and I would love to be wrong about it, but I no longer think that's gonna happen. Um okay. Cool. Well, I had more stuff I wanted to say about amusement parks and Dippin' Dots though, which is just that like part of why I love them is because they're like, and part of why it's upsetting to me when people are like smacking shit out of each other's hands and filming it at an amusement park is that it's like still sort of a pure physical experience. There's like not supposed to be screens involved. It's not a YouTube video. It's not like a cool TV show. It's not a killer app. You're just like walking around the park, going on rides, feeling shit and seeing shit. And in the case of Dipping Dots, tasting shit. And I think that's cool. And I like how intense it is. Like every time I ride King Dakar, the tallest roller coaster in the world, every time I ride it, just for people who might not be familiar, all that ride is you sit in this thing. There's like some pneumatic chamber they fill with gas, then they like accelerate you really fast, so you go from like 0 to 200 miles an hour in the span of like 100 meters or something. Then you go straight up this stupidly tall hairpin and then go straight down, and then the ride's over. You just like get accelerated, go up, it's like over in less than a minute. And like every time I do it, I have the same thought afterward, which is like, that was more intense than I remembered. And I've been going on this ride for a while. So every time I get in, I'm like, now remember, last time I did this, I said it was going to be more intense than I remembered. So this time I'm going to try to expect it to be even more intense. And every time when I'm done, I'm like, fuck, that was somehow more intense than I expected it to be. So I'm grateful to it for being like that. And that's also part of the reason why, like, a lot of amusement parks have introduced this thing where you can like buy a pass that lets you like skip the line. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Six Flags calls it Flash Pass. It's like you hold this little thing, and it like you can tell it what ride you want to do, and then it like lights up and lets you skip the line, and there's like a separate entrance. I've never signed up for that in my life. I've had the conversation about it a couple times with my friends, and we've like checked it out and looked into it. You have to pay more for it. I've like almost done it a couple times, and then at a certain point, I decided I'm never going to do it. I decided I'm against it because I feel like it introduces. I mean, one, it like introduces an app into Six Flags, which I still am hoping can like hold out as like an app-free paradise, like just a fully non-virtual world. I think that would be cool. I feel like at some point we decided like virtual reality would be cool. It would be cool to be able to escape into that. And then like the further we get into it, the more it's cool to be like, what if you could exit the virtual reality? Like what if there was a place you could go that was like zero virtual? So I'm hoping Six Flags can be that. And the little skip the line app bullshit thing is like the beginning of it not being that. And then also it introduces a class element. Now it's like, well, people who pay for the extra thing can skip the line. And like, I don't like that. There's something sort of tacky about that. There's something I think undignified about paying more money to skip a bunch of people in line. It's, to me, the strong and silent type would not do that. Strong and silent types don't do shit like that. We just get in the line and wait in the line, and we don't complain about it, and we don't cut. We can just wait in line. There's like a there's like a thing on social media now. I don't know how real it is, but it's like people talk about raw dogging flights. It'll be some guy like in a Yankees hat who says like, I just did a 7-hour flight, no water, no screens, no magazines, no food, no talking. And he just sat there the whole time. And like they're bragging about doing that. I think that's like kind of dumb and like stupid, but I almost get it. Or like, I feel like that's like somewhere in there is like an instinct or like an appetite for something that is like correct, but it's just being directed in like the stupidest, most ineffectual way. You know what I mean? I feel like that's an example of people who have this like they wouldn't know how to say it because like they didn't watch The Sopranos, so they're not educated, but like somewhere in there it's like a guy's thinking like, man, whatever happened to the strong silent type? Maybe I could be the strong silent type by raw dogging it on a flight for 9 hours. And like, look, I admire the discipline required to do that, but part of me also thinks like, you're kind of wasting your time. Like there's cooler shit the strong silent types can do. You know what I mean? Like in Tony Soprano's case, when he's talking about like whatever happened with Gary Cooper, like those Gary Cooper movies were not about him just sitting there for 9 hours. You see what I'm saying? So like I kind of feel like there's a failure of the imagination happening there. But I do begin to resemble just that a little tiny bit when I get online at Six Flags. I'm standing there being like, this is the kind of person I am. I'm just going to stand on this line. And if other people get to skip me because they have the stupid light up thing, I'm just going to look at them. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to look at them and be like, that makes you feel good? You just got this little light up bullshit thing that you pay money for so you can skip the line. That makes you think that you made good life choices. All right. I've just been sort of carrying on here for a while. I haven't really been following the comments. I'm sorry if you guys have been trying to engage and I've just been completely ignoring you. Let's back up a little bit. Here's one from Hypocript. As a guitar player, what would be your recommendation to start experimenting with synths? I only have a MIDI controller with no way to use pedals alongside it, but I want to start learning something. Ha ha. Dude, what is ha ha about that? There's no joke in there. Like people say funny shit on these live streams. There's no joke here. Also, if you're a fan of amusement parks and roller coasters, Defunct Land has a lot of great related videos. Okay, well, thank you for that. Sorry for laughing in your face. I'll be sure to check that out. My advice to you about MIDI controller with no way to use pedals. I don't have a lot of synths. The one I do have is the OP1, which I bought from a friend of mine. He was like, you have to have this. The sounds it can make are very up your alley, and it's also kind of a hot YouTube album. This was like a couple years ago. He was like, it's a hot YouTube item, so if you make a video about it, it'd be good for your channel. This was in the early days of my channel. So I bought it for those reasons, and that's the only synth that I've really ever owned. So I'm not super I'm not like in a position to give you a good answer, unfortunately. But I agree, like the problem with the MIDI controllers, you can't run pedals with it, and pedals can be cool. Although on the other hand, synthesizers are so banana, you can do so much that like if you bring pedals into it, it's like might be overkill. You know what I mean? Like part of the reason why I think pedals work with guitars is because on some level, like the sound sent out by a guitar is like not that crazy, like you ever listen to a dry guitar sound like before it even goes to the amp? It's like it's not incredible, you know what I mean? It's like you're sort of starting with some raw clay there. With the synthesizer, it's like it's got so much shit. What do you need the pedal for? I think like the pedals I end up using the most with my synth is like a stereo reverb or something, or a tremolo. But those are like fairly standard issue pedals, I'm sorry for kind of making fun of your question and then not answering it. Let me try to answer it. I guess the real answer would be like I think having some limitations with your gear can force you to be creative, and having constraints can be cool. It might be cooler than having like infinite stuff you could do. So I would say like pick a synth that you think looks fine and isn't a huge amount of money. Like don't make a huge investment, and then just like live with that synth and let that be the only synth you have, and like see if you can force yourself to be creative on. I guess what I'm saying is like I don't think you can make a terrible mistake here. I think if you just buy a synth and then commit to it and keep it for a while, it'll force you to. I mean, in some ways, the best thing that can happen is like you get sick of it because there are very specific things it can't do. And like that's right when it's about to get good. Like right when you're like, man, I wish this synth could do wave folding and it can't. Before you get rid of it, you should just see if you can like force it to do wavefolding somehow. I mean, I don't even really understand entirely what wavefolding is, so that's like a bad example. But the OP1, for instance, the synth I have, it doesn't have a bit crusher in it. It doesn't have like a bit crusher effect you could just turn on and bit crush, but there is some weird effect it has called grid. And I found out if you like if you push that to some extreme settings, it can bit crush. And it's like a weird, more unusual type of bit crushing that now I'm glad is what it is. So I feel like you should stick with it. And then right when you're like, I can't work with this anymore, then that's when it's about to get good. That's my advice to you. All right. That was like one comment from like half an hour ago. Let's see if we can pick up the pace a little bit. Oh, okay. So that's good. Let's spend time on this clarification of a comment that I, left behind a while ago. I was talking about pranksters, not evildoers in general. Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's like the pranksters probably don't get away with it, but the evildoers do. I mean, that's probably right because like sooner or later pranksters get beat. Me and some of my friends had like a phase of this. There was a while when after school, me and my friends would drive around and like fuck shit up. It was more my friends, but sometimes I was present for some of it. And I mean, I'll put it to you this way: like my buddies who really did this like full time, like every day, like they weren't on a sports team or whatever. Like for me during the cross country season, I was just like, I don't have time for that. I'm sorry, but I had some buddies who like didn't have that. They didn't have high school sports, so therefore they had like no belief system. And so every day after school, they would just like hop in the car and drive around and like, silly string people or worse. It's true that they faced some consequences for that, but not really as much as you would want them to. I remember one time they got busted. Like we were out driving around and like all of my friends' phones rang at the same time. And all their parents were really mad because they'd like just gotten a call from the police about something they had done. And they like everybody had to go home right now. It was just something they had done, but it was one of the times I wasn't there. So I was like, nice. I just got to watch my friends realize they were in big trouble, and I like secretly loved it. I was just in the backseat being like, I'm so glad this is not my problem. That's the kind of piece of shit you are in high school. You're just like, if your friend gets dumped, you're like, ooh, yeah, that sucks. Anyway, all my friends got in big trouble. And they all got off the phone, and then they like tried to figure out what it was for. They're like, which one is this? It ended up being prank phone calls, but they were like, is this like the thing? Is this the time with the shovel? Or like, is this the one with the lawn that had the Christmas shit? Like they were like frantically trying to figure out what thing they had been busted for, so that when they got home, they could be like, no, that was terrible. You're right. And they couldn't figure it out. So they got home and they were like, what's this about? And it'll be in prank phone calls. What worlds or communities today do you feel could be less virtual? Okay, asking me to like expand and clarify on some shit that just came out of my mouth 10 minutes ago. Okay, all right. Well, it's not an unfair question. I mean, at the risk of sounding like a real old, I mean, like I'm on my phone all the fucking time. Everybody's on their phone all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I guess my answer to you would be the world we live in, the world as we know it. Like I love doing this YouTube shit, but like I'm looking at my laptop screen, and like after this is over, I'm gonna have to edit my next YouTube video, which means I'm gonna be looking at a laptop screen. You know what I mean? And then when that's over and I'm tired, I might be like, well, maybe I can veg out just for a second to recharge my batteries. What am I going to do? I'm probably going to look at my YouTube notifications and then watch a funny YouTube video about glitches in a video game, which means I'm going to be looking at a laptop screen. You see what I'm saying? I mean, again, like I'm not under the impression that what I'm saying is an original point here. Do you think being a complete beginner drummer is able to gig for money? I would doubt it, but it's possible. I mean, I guess so I'll put it to you this way. First of all, being a really good drummer and making a living by gigging for money is hard. Let's keep that in mind. Like you could be a good musician and having a successful career where you're like don't have a day job and are able to pay for the shit in your life you got to pay for when you're good, it's not easy. So do you think it would be possible to do it if you're bad at it? I mean, yeah, I think that would be a challenge, but I'm not going to say it's impossible. I mean, people get away with shit all the time. You know what I mean? So you might be able to get away with it. But would you hire a complete beginner? Would you do it? And the last thing I'll say too here is that, like, just the nature of this question makes me think you might also have certain ideas about what makes a drummer sound good or bad that are wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just give you, since you might be a beginner, I'm gonna like give you one piece of advice that, like, if you don't understand what I'm about to say, is gonna like hold you back for years. Okay, like, the thing that makes a drummer good is not being able to play fancy shit. That's not the thing. The thing is being able to like keep time with making zero mistakes. If you go to a concert and the drummer sort of like misses a beat once, or like you hear the tempo stray once, that's a lot. That's bad. You know what I mean? So doing the fancy fill, but sort of speeding up while you do it, but hitting it, that doesn't count as hitting it. Like, being able to completely master the tempo for the entire show, like, that's the beginning of good, and like showing off has nothing to do with it. I should actually say it's even worse than that. I would say that being able to completely master the tempo the whole time, that's like the beginning of intermediate. And then truly good is like choosing when to deviate from the tempo in a way that's cool and good. Like, the tempo's here, but you get a little behind it, or you get a little ahead of it, whatever. Like, that's what makes a drummer truly good. But like, whether you can play along to whatever Rush song you think is like the hard one, if that's, I just, something about the way you pose this question makes me think that's probably might be how you're thinking about this, and that itself is like not a good way to think about it. Have you ever talked about how you make your video graphic sequences? Yeah, yes, I have. That's in previous Ask Me Anything. It might also be one of my frequently asked questions. I might even be answering this in the video description of this video. I forget what my frequently asked questions are, but I have a thing in the video description of this video and every Ask Me Anything where I have a list of frequently asked questions where I explain it. If it's not there, look for my channel for the playlist called Behind the Scenes. There's a couple videos in a playlist that are behind the scenes videos. If you watch those, it answers whatever questions you could have. Does it count if people are raw dogging flights just to then post about it online after? Oh, great point. Yeah, no, clearly not. If you raw dog a 7-hour flight and then you post about it and brag, you're not raw dogging anymore. Great point. Personal question. Answer if you're comfortable with it. Any tattoos? Thoughts on tattooed up musicians? I don't have any tattoos. I don't have thoughts about other people with tattoos. It's completely fine with me. I'm not such a psycho that I think that if you have tattoos, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Tattoos are fine. I never got tattoos, in large part because I can never make up my mind. Like, every idea I ever had about a tattoo, later I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get that. Which makes me, that happened enough times where I was like, I should probably never get a tattoo. I've never had a tattoo where like 6 months later I was like, I still want that tattoo. Every time I've been like, oh no, that was a bad idea. I remember when I was 18, I went to a tattoo parlor with some friends of mine because we were thinking about it, and we like asked what it would cost to get certain tattoos. I like did the thing you do before you really get a tattoo. And I was asking about how to get a tattoo of Randy Rhoads' face on my arm. Randy Rhoads, the guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne, who died after 2 records in the early 80s. I was like thinking about getting a tattoo of Randy. Now, here's the crazy thing about this is that, like, I've always liked Randy Rhoads, but like, he was only ever my favorite guitar player for like the 2 weeks when I went and did this one thing. You know what I mean? Like, look, I love Randy Rhoads. Don't lose your shit. But like the simple question of like, which guitar player should you get as a tattoo? It's not even clear that like Randy Rhoads was the right answer for me. But anyway, I went and priced out a Randy Rhoads face tattoo on my arm. And then after a while, I was like, well, that means that like for the rest of my life, people are going to be asking like, why Why do you have a guy's face on your arm? Who's that guy? Who is that? And like, how many times am I really going to be in the mood to be like, that's the face of Randy Rhoads, who you may know from Crazy Train. I mean, I just felt like, no, I don't want to have that conversation once. So that was an early sign that I was like, maybe I should get off the ride. And then the other thing was like, I used to be in a band called Sweet Fix. That was like the band that I thought was going to be the band of my life from the age of like 20 to 25 or something. And by coincidence, none of us had tattoos. Like we didn't try to, we weren't straight edge. We didn't say like, let's be a no tattoo band. Like it sort of happened that way. And we played in New York a lot, and we were sort of running in this hard rock crowd where like the other bands we, played with were like hard rock bands. And like a lot of them had like hard rock tattoos, of like the Flaming 8-Ball or whatever. It was like Flaming 8-Ball guitar strap energy, like, Black Ice air freshener in the car energy. And that was the kind of tattoos I was around all the time. And then one day during this era, I was in a supermarket and I saw like temporary tattoos that was like for kids, it was like trucks or something. And I was like, oh, that'd be good. I should wear like temporary tattoos from the supermarket as a way of like having a different tattoo from what I was around all the time. So then that became my thing. Then I just started wearing temporary tattoos for a lot of my shows. And then I was like, oh, I like that. That to me was like an early cyber attack aesthetic discovery. It was like, I would just buy a whole sheet of kids' tattoos and like put the whole sheet on. So it was just like a bunch of little tattoos in a row. It looked like a guy who put the sheet on. And sometimes people would be like, did you get a tattoo that looks like a temporary tattoo? And I was like, no, it's a temporary tattoo. Like it's amazing to how many people were just like, whoa, that looks like a temporary tattoo. I wonder if it's a real tattoo. It's like, no, it looks like a temporary tattoo because it is the thing that it looks like it is. And then what I started doing was like, how they start to fade and get fucked up and like you can't see what they are anymore. I started putting the tattoos on like a week before the shows and then like trying to rub them so they would get fucked up and you didn't even know what they were. I was like trying to get my temporary tattoos to look like bad JPEGs. This was when I was like the cyber attack religion was like starting to form. This was when I was like receiving the prophecies from God in the cave, where I was like, okay, I get it now. So that's when I was like, well, I can never get a real tattoo now because temporary tattoos is better. All right, guys, I'm sorry that you asked me one question and then you like have a million comments and I just tune out. I know I always come on here and I'm like, this is my favorite thing about being on YouTube and I love the chat and I love what you guys come up with. And then you say one thing and I just like stop paying attention for so long. Cool. Oh, this is good. The Cadillac does not need bumper stickers. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's kind of strong silent type energy. I like that. That's pretty good. Yeah, no, that's good. That reminds me. So my father is an architect, and every once in a while, when I was a kid, I would like ask some question about like, why does that building look like that? Or is that, I just said that, but I don't actually ever remember asking my dad why that building looks like that. I don't remember how we got to this, what I'm about to tell you. But every once in a while, my dad would say, he would quote some architect philosopher that he knew from like when he was in college or whatever, who said, ornament is crime. I don't know a lot about what's behind that statement, but apparently if you're an architect and you go to school, there's like a school of thought they have to teach you at one point. There's like a unit, which is like, some people think ornament is crime. And I feel like that's kind of what this guy's saying. The Cadillac doesn't need bumper stickers. This is one of those things where it's like overstating it a little bit. Like I probably like some ornaments. Some of my shit can be extra. I like guitar solos. I like, sometimes I'm like, you gotta make it extra, but I like I like having it sort of be out there I like things sometimes that like overstate the position, but now you know that's the position that's out there, and you can decide like how close you want to get to it, right? Like T. Adorno saying after Auschwitz, poetry is barbaric. You know, do we really think that? Like, I mean, if the poetry is just about how like, wow, that sunset is so beautiful, I can see why after the camps it's kind of like we got bigger fucking problems here. I get it, but like, so then there can be never be any poetry ever. Like, you can't even have like the lyrics to a Kiss song because like I don't want to lose everything, you know. But I like the idea that like that guy might have overstated it, but you know, what a stance, what a position. Um, can you still buy the low acid orange juice? I tried to buy some the other day to see if it was as good as you said, but they didn't carry it at the store I went to. I'm pretty sure they still make it. Yeah. Oh, look at this. Roscoe's, of course, Roscoe's Raps is on it. Roscoe's Raps is my guy. Yeah, it's still out there. You can't really get it at like a convenience store. You know what I mean? They're not going to have it at the pharmacy. You have to go to like supermarkets. Like you're only going to see the low acid orange juice at like the type of place that has like a section for orange juices. um if people watching this don't know why we're talking about this, it's because some of the earliest videos on my channel were a documentary series I made about Tropicana pure premium orange juice low acid. If you haven't seen those, I'm honestly surprised that anyone could follow anything I've done since then without seeing those videos. Those videos kind of just like explain the whole thing. um Cool. All right. Let me go. Can I link a song in the chat to be reviewed? Okay, we're gonna do this. And you're one of my YouTube members, which means you it means you got the little pass at Six Flags that lets you skip the line. So yeah, but don't put it in the chat. I don't want to have to copy and paste it out of the chat, and I'm not gonna be able to find it in the chat. If you got to email it to me. My email address is is it bad to say it? If I say it, is like something bad gonna happen? If you go to my website, cyberattack.world, my email address is there. Email it to me and we'll do it when we get to the mixed reviews section of the show. Again, the mixed reviews, I'm reserving it for my Patreon and YouTube members. Depending on how it goes, I might open it up for the next show. But for the first show, it's just for my BFFs. Okay, cool. All right, let me blow through some of the other pre-submitted questions so that we can get to the mix reviews. Here's one from the YouTube channel, What is Politics? That's like a deep dive. That YouTube, I got a question from a guy who runs a YouTube channel called What is Politics? You might want to check that out if you just want deep dives. Like if you just wake up and you're like, I don't know what I want to watch, but I want it to be a deep dive, this might be the channel for you, except it's all about politics. He's not really going to do a deep dive about like orange juice low acid unless it was about how like you know, how like consumerist culture is like an inevitable consequence of like the agricultural revolution, and how like that is why like inequality exists. That he would maybe discuss low acid orange juice in that context alone. But today's question was, when you appear on other people's records, is it a gun for hire thing or friendly collab? It's more and more, it's like people I know or have some relationship with. You know, like the last couple things I've released that have been with other people, it's because like we know each other in real life. So usually we have like the kind of agreement you make with people you know and trust, where it's like you know, you share some of the you're like sharing a percentage or something like that, and it's not like you just got paid for the session or whatever. But I've also done sessions I'm paid for. It's just the number one thing about like the music biz is that like you get hired because of people who know you or know people you know. Like it's really just like it's rare that like you get the good gig that is good because of a flyer. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of time responding to shit on flyers, and like, I mean, not anymore. There was a time in my life when like I sort of couldn't get arrested, and like I was just going to rehearsal studios and looking at bulletin boards and taking things and emailing my reel to people, and like I met up and played with some of those people, but it's just my read on this is that it's like rare for something that's at the level of putting up flyers to then get to a level that is beyond putting up flyers. The more work is like, you get more work from people being like, oh, you know who you should call? It's like, I can't do it, but you should call Ivan, or like if you ask me and I'm like, well, I can't do it, but you should call my buddy Justin or whatever. That's where like more of it comes from, I found. So it tends to be people I know or people who are friends of friends, and like that's basically the answer to the question. All right, here's another pre-submitted one. Do you prefer, this is from Jeff Podswick. I wonder if I said that right. Jeff Podswick. Do you prefer practicing on one guitar or practice on all of them equally? I do give guitar lessons. There's a link in the video description if you want to like find out more about taking guitar lessons with me. And I tell people who are starting out to like just practice on one instrument for a while. Like, it's hard to start. Guitar is like a punishing instrument to begin with. You know what I mean? Like on a keyboard, you could just like push a fucking button. You push the button and it makes a note. Like it's rare for somebody to struggle with that part of it. Whereas like producing a note on a guitar is like difficult. You got to fret it. You got to hit it with the other hand. It's like not supposed to buzz. Then you got to hit another note and like curve your. It's just like a pain in the ass to start. And if you so I think it's better to just like stick with one instrument and like get to the level of being able to do it on one instrument before you start fucking around with other ones. Because every time you reset with a new instrument when you're a beginner, it sort of feels like everything you used to be able to do a second ago is out the window, and like that can be sort of frustrating and demoralizing. So I think it's better to just like get sort of decent, like reach a level of adequacy just so you can like know what adequacy even feels like before you then try it on a different instrument. I remember learning this the hard way when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I've been taking guitar lessons for like a year at that point, and I could like kind of do a little bit. I could improvise a little bit. I could play like a couple songs. And I remember I was like wound up in some girl's house. We were gonna hang out or something, but her dad played guitar and he had a bunch of guitars lying around on stands in the living room, and he was like, oh, I heard you play guitar. He heard I played guitar because like I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. I thought that was my ticket. I assumed I was only even in this girl's house because she thought it was cool that I played guitar. She probably didn't give a shit, but in my mind I was like, that's the thing. So this chick's dad was like, I heard you play guitar. Why don't you play something for us? And so I was like, oh, goody. So I took one of his guitars, and like, I've been used to playing a Fender Strat, and his guitar was like a Gibson ES or an Epiphone ES 335. It was just like, it felt completely different, and like everything was different. And I started trying to play Crazy Train, of course, and I could do the main riff. I could do like do like that was fine. But then I kept going, and as soon as it got to like it was bad. I couldn't do it. It sounded like shit, and that was like the classic thing. Where I was like, well, I can play this, and it was embarrassing for everybody. Like I remember sensing that like everybody watching this was just like, well, we shouldn't ask him to do this. It was just bad. So don't let that be you. But for me though, at this point, like, I mean, that was a long time ago, right? I like continued to practice. I did get a little bit better at guitar along the way. So at this point, like, I honestly kind of don't even know what I like anymore. I have a bunch of different guitars. I have like the custom one that looks like a Mockingbird that was made for me. I got the Strat. I got the SG. Anytime I pick up one of my guitars, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this one. I don't even really know what I like anymore. So you can get there. It's just you got to be patient. Question: Can you recommend a channel dealing with guitar maintenance, electronics, projects, and soldering? I really want to get the basics down and save money too. I don't. I don't really watch YouTube videos about that. I also don't really know a lot about that myself. You know what I mean? Like I can change strings and stuff, but I don't know how to solder. You know, judge me how you will. I don't know how to solder. I feel bad about that. I can do my own oil. I fixed my own tires. I've been punched in the face. I've punched in the face. I spent the night in jail once, but I don't know how to solder. So judge me how you will as a man based on all that. I change guitars for different tones and hand feels for different styles, but that's for more advanced players. Beginners should stick to one axe with a good setup and decent frets. That's not even a question. That's just agreeing with what I said. Cool. All right. Thank you. Good job. Dave's World of Fun Stuff is great for, look, there's the answer to your question. Good job, Teal Static. Teal Static, did you email me that thing? Because I don't see it in my inbox. And if I don't get it soon, I'm not going to do your track. Make sure you email it to me. Okay. Let's keep going with my pre-submitted questions. Just got a couple more of these. This question is from Binky Tara. What advice would you give your past self when it comes to making and recording music? Yeah, well, so one thing would be that like how much knowing a lot of people will help you have a good long-term career as a musician. Like I used to be in a band and I sort of thought it was all for this band. And I wasn't really curious about collaborating with people outside the band. I remember when Metallica hired Jason Newsted and they were like, Jason, you can never do anything else. And they like forbid him to have outside projects. That kind of made sense to me. I was like, Metallica was right to do it that way. I now think that's like bad advice. And Jason Newsted was right to rebel and to overthrow his Metallica oppressors. So I would sort of be like, so for instance, here's the story. Somehow there was like a guy who worked in the same building as my dad. Is it the AOL email? Yeah, send it to the AOL email, which automatically gets forwarded to my real email. The answer is yes. Somehow there was like a guy who worked in the same building as my dad who was involved in music. And like, you know, I was like 19 or something. So my dad was like, you got to help me. My son is like trying to be a musician. Like, can you like talk to him or whatever? You know? So I had a meeting with this guy who like, I think he's like a guy who's like, you could probably, it's bad that I don't know who he is. He like has a Wikipedia article about him or something probably. I think he was in the band that wrote the song that was the X-Files theme song. It might've been that guy. It's like embarrassing that I'm talking about someone famous and I don't even remember who it is. That gives you some indication of how the rest of this meeting is going to go for me though in the story. So he was like, he was a producer who worked with a lot of other musicians and was like always sort of like making tracks for people and was like making money. And I played on my band's EP and he listened to it. He was European. And there was one where he was like, I love how American that guitar riff is, which I was like, I sort of like that. He was like, oh man, that's just like so American. I love that. And I was like, cool, thanks. And then he was like, yeah, I mean, look, this song's not a hit. But you know, maybe we could take some of those parts and like reuse some of them. And I was just like, excuse me? I was like, what do you mean it's not a hit? I think it's got hit written all over. I didn't say that, but I was thinking like, I don't know, man. To me, that music sounds like Van Halen meets Ozzy Osbourne. And you better believe those guys sold some records. Like I was very confident that the song I had written and recorded with my friends at age 19 was like a stone cold hit. And so I was like, you want me to take the song I wrote and then like take out one of the parts and like give it to someone else? I was just like, I don't think so, man. I mean, I don't think I had that much of an attitude. I think I was just like, maybe I'll think about it and then didn't do it. That was my attitude. And then like, I never heard or saw that guy again. You know, looking back now, I regret it. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. I thought that the song I'd written as I'd written it was going to be a hit. And I was like, I'll take my chances on my own material. Well, it wasn't a hit, and that band broke up. So, you know, I wish if I'd let him take some of those parts and do something with it, all you're doing is buying an extra lottery ticket. You know what I mean? What kind of idiot? I mean, I don't think you should buy lottery tickets. I think that's, not a good investment. But what kind of idiot was like, I'm not going to buy 2 lottery tickets, idiot. I bought one. Why would I buy a lottery ticket if I didn't think this was the one that was going to win? So by buying another one, I would just be even more stupid. I mean, I think you should buy 0 lottery tickets, but that's outside the metaphor. Inside the metaphor, you should try to buy as many as you can. And I took this one and just like fucking flushed it down the toilet. So that attitude I would change. I would be like, dude, you should give him the riff and then have as many more meetings like that as you can. Just like cast as wide a net as you possibly can. Another piece of advice I would give myself has to do with recording specifically. This was something I figured out eventually, but it took me a while. I remember, I started making my like home recordings and my demos and stuff like towards the end of high school. And I had certain like beliefs about trying to prove that I was a legit guitar player. And so like any song I wrote had to have a riff that I thought was like pushing the instrument forward in an interesting way. Like I set rules for myself, like no bar chords. You can't just strum a bar chord. Like if you have to play that chord, you should find a more interesting voicing, or instead of playing it, you should make it a riff, or instead of strumming it, you should come up with a picking pattern, but no bar chords, because never playing a bar chord would force me to be more creative. Now, there might be truth to that, but I took it to a level that was like not productive anymore, and it's also very possible to just write a catchy song that's good and has a good chord progression and has a good melody that uses bar chords. And in some ways, it's like if you can make a song that's only bar chords sound good just because the melodies and the chords are cool, that's a better sign than writing a song that has 0 bar chords in it because you were trying to be creative. So I think I was like being sort of chauvinistic in a certain way back there. But the point was like that's the kind of guitar material I was trying to produce. And I didn't use effects back then either. It was like my whole sound was just a Boss Super Overdrive going into a Marshall JCM 800. Everything was supposed to be about this. Like I was going to make shit interesting just from this, from playing, from like how I played the instrument. And I also like other rules I had. I would double track everything, because like double tracking is what the great hard rock records did. AC/DC, it was like a lot of the power was from Angus and Malcolm double tracking, or Randy Rhoads again was like triple track himself, so everything had to be double tracked. And sometimes I would make these recordings where like, I followed all my own rules. I like wrote the guitar parts according to what I thought they had to be to establish that I was a good guitar player. And then I double tracked everything, which I thought I had to do to establish that I was like a very precise player and it would make it sound better. And then sometimes I would like check all those boxes, and then I would listen to the song and be like, well, maybe there's some other stuff I could do just to make the song a little more interesting. And like I would add a harmony in the second verse, or I would sort of like I had some old Casio keyboard and I would try to do something interesting with that. And this was the stuff I was doing where I was like, I don't need to prove it anymore. Now I'm just trying to make stuff sound interesting, but I've already established that I can play. So this is just like the frosting part. This is just to make stuff sound a little more interesting. And every once in a while I would listen to that stuff and be like, I wonder if some of that's like more interesting than all the guitar shit that I was uptight about. And like looking back now, it was. It was. The overdubs I was doing where I was just like, well, this isn't to prove I'm a guitar player. This is just to make it sound cool. Those were like the beginning of stuff that could sound good. And everything up to that point was just like me sort of working through my own bullshit. And every once in a while I would have the thought that I was like, what if that is just me working through my own bullshit? But I cared so much about like being a certain type of guitar player and having a reputation for being a certain kind of guitar player that like it took me longer than it should have to realize like, yeah, a lot of that other stuff is just kind of boring and who gives a fuck. So I think I did get there eventually, but I I just, if I could go back in time, I would say like that's right. That the sort of nagging doubt you have is the right thing. But then on the other hand, like, I think I did become a good guitar player because I was forcing myself to do shit like that. Like, I think artistically it held me back for a little while, but like now that I get it, I do sometimes and feel glad that like I can play. You know what I mean? Like if you take the pitch shifters and the bit crushers and the glitchy bullshit away, like I'm not out of luck. Like I can do, I can still sort of play my the instrument, and like I don't want to lose that. So part of me wonders if the like dysfunctional bad phase I went through might actually have also been used. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. No judgment. I bask in the radiance of your hyper masculine. Okay, all right, all right. I'm not sure what the like way to respond to that is that will like not then mess it up. Like whatever the response is to this that will not diminish the radiance of my hypermasculinity. That's the kind of response I hope to be able to issue. Anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying the live streams. Um, Besides guitar, what's your favorite instrument? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't I in terms of listening, I don't really care. I mean, there's some. I feel like the more interesting answer here is like the instruments that I think might be full of shit. That's what you guys really want, right? I saw a commercial for a master class about ukulele, and it had this guy who's like the best ukulele player, and he played some shit where like he was good. Like I was impressed with what he could do. But since it was an ad for a master class, then he also had to get in some shit there about how like you can travel with a ukulele, and it's so simple that it's going to teach you some valuable lessons about finding beauty in ordinary places. And like this ukulele isn't just an instrument, it's also like a key to understanding who you are and embracing the ordinary and finding or whatever. There was like a message. There was like, it wasn't just ukulele masterclass, it was also like profound courage and grace masterclass. And that to me sort of confirmed my prejudice that like maybe ukulele's full of shit. Maybe. Sorry. I'm sure that's wrong. You know what I mean? I'm sure like the original context of ukulele is cool. Like I don't even know where it's from. Whatever country invented it, like their OG ukulele indigenous stuff, I'm sure that stuff is cool. The part that I'm skeptical of is like the masterclass version. I just remember this ad as like he reminded me of magicians. By which I mean like, guys who do fucking magic, like Chris Angel or whatever, Penn and Teller, you know? Like I just don't like that vibe where they're like, I tricked you, but actually I didn't trick you. What I really did was I have this like message and I'm actually going to explain like that. I can't stand it. I'm like, it's you know how like kids today talk about try hard. That's a vibe. They'll like criticize stuff for being try hard. This is a good one. I don't love every new vocabulary word I hear, but I like this one. Like every magician I've ever seen was a try hard. Like if what you were doing was really that cool, you wouldn't then have to be so fucking presentational about it, and you wouldn't have to do the fucking jazz hands or whatever it is, and you wouldn't have to like then explain what the message of your thing is. Like I like stuff where it doesn't have a message. I think that's cool. I think it's cool when shit is just like figure it out. You know, I really like that. I recently watched Priscilla, the Sofia Coppola movie about Elvis's wife, and like I read a thing about it that described Sofia Coppola as like possibly being a vibes only director. Like her whole school of thought as a director of films is like it's just vibes only, and like I think I'm pro vibes only. I think I get it. I think I like that. You know what I mean? It's like there's no moment in Priscilla where it's like, and that was the day she decided that who she really was profound courage and grace. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't do that. It's just like here's some shit that happened. Figure it out. You know what I mean? We wish you the best. I kind of admire that, and I feel like no one who really gets that would become a magician. Because when you're a magician, it's like you can't just let the thing be the thing. You then have to be like, ta-da! You know what I mean? Like we're gonna do the mix reviews in a minute, but I'll like make this real easy for you. Like, you should delete the tada of whatever your thing is. Like, whatever the part is where you're like, and that, ladies and gentlemen, like, you just cut that part out. Nobody needs to hear that. We're not fucking idiots, you know? Or if we are, if you think your audience needs that, if you think your audience like needs to then just be handed like, and the real message is right here, like, well, okay, maybe your audience does, but like, then don't, I'm not the guy whose live stream you should be watching. You know what I mean? Some people make work like that and they probably do better than me. They probably make more money than I do. They probably have more YouTube subscribers than I do. So maybe you should do it that way. But if that's true, then you are wasting your time by watching this live stream. You should stop watching this right now and go sign up for the ukulele masterclass as quickly as you can. Okay. Great. I missed a million more comments again. Do you like Mr. Bungle? Oh, yeah. Okay. I find Mr. Bungle unlistenable. I had a friend when I was talking before about my friends who like just like vandalized shit all the time after school. One of those guys was a Mr. Bungle guy. So I would hear the shit in his car. He had the CDs. This was the era when like you had to like to play CDs in your car. Sometimes you needed to like put in a fake tape cassette that was then connected to a wire that was then a CD player that was like running on batteries. He had like a fucking adhesive thing on his hood, on his dashboard that he like stuck a CD player to that was then feeding a blank cassette that was then playing a CD player. So I listened to Mr. Bungle in that format in this kid's car. And, you know, I just found it like repellent. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, again, I don't like really criticizing. I mean, I don't even know if I can say that with a straight face because I spend a lot of time criticizing on these live streams. But you know, on one level, like they didn't do anything that is like wrong to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's the people who can do a lot worse shit for our world here than write a song I didn't like. So part of me feels like, why do you really need to criticize them? You know, we're all just trying to find the good notes, right? I'm sorry that I like can never just let it be that. I understand that Mike Patton is like a 1 in a million vocalist. I get it. You know, I recognize that he can do all kinds of things. I know that he did the zombie noises in Walking Dead or whatever it is. Like, I can't do any of that. Like, he's a better singer than me. Okay. Like, I recognize it, but on some level, like, I just find Mr. Bungle, to me, that's like Mr. Bungle sounds like the music a serial killer would play for his victims while he kills them. You know what I mean? Like, they just raided the basement of the Gilgo Beach Killer. Like, I'm sure he had a fucking stack of Mr. Bungle CDs in there. That's just me what it sounds like. You know, Mr. Bungle is like CDs for It Puts the Lotion in the Bottle. That's where my mind goes when I have to hear that. I'm like, I don't want to listen to music that makes me think I'm about to be murdered by John Wayne Gacy. You know, sorry, I don't want to hear that. That's just how it sounds to me. On some level, you know, I know I spend a lot of time talking about how like noise is beautiful on my YouTube channel, and like, you hear me say that enough times, you would be forgiven for thinking that I sort of have like, you know, fucked up taste. But I really mean it when I say like I think noise can be beautiful. I care about the beautiful part, you know? Like, I want this, on some level, I want the stuff I listen to be kind of like beautiful and great. And there's exceptions to that. Like, I really love Slayer, and I don't think Slayer is beautiful. But I do think there's like a still a sort of an attractive power to Slayer, even though it's not beautiful. They're like able to marshal the forces of like evil in this way that is like it pulls me in. I'm attracted to it, you know. And like, so the reason I'm saying that is that like on some level, I still just want stuff to be like yum. That's still kind of what I want, you know. And so on that level, I have like that, I don't know what the name for it is, but like that's the kind of taste I have. Like, pleasure, I want a certain type of pleasure to be involved, you know. I think it's cool when people say shit like ornament is crime, and after Auschwitz, poetry is barbaric. Like, I'm glad people say shit like that, and I sort of wrestle with those ideas. But for me, like, I think not. I think I want a couple Christmas tree ornaments, you know? And to me, Mr. Bungle, there's just like a 0 on that column for that. So that's why I can't do it. But a lot of people I like do like Mr. Bungle. And there was a while when I was like so uptight about being a certain kind of guitar player that I had like the Faith No More records, and I like kind of liked Faith No More for a little bit. You know, so that's my here's someone who knows. The new heavy stuff is pretty good. Take a second for me to come around. Okay. Once again, I like answered one question and missed a million questions. I'm sorry about that. What's a good album to start with Mr. Bungle? That's a good question. If anyone answered that, I'll put it on the screen. Okay, cool. All right. I think what we're going to do now is switch to the part of the night where I do the mix reviews. I told my YouTube members and Patreon subscribers that if they send me a song ahead of the show, I would listen to it on the air and give mixed critiques. Teal Static, I still didn't get yours, just so you know. If you emailed this to me, I didn't get it. Go to the like the About Me page of my YouTube channel, and my email address is there because I know you're a YouTube member. I don't want you to miss out. Okay, cool. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to play a couple songs that were submitted to me ahead of time by people who either paid YouTube members or Patreon subscribers. We're going to listen to their song. I'm going to set up a screen share. You're going to hear it too. I have a lot I got to say about this before I start doing it. First thing I got to say is I'm pretty sure playing it through a screen share is going to like make it sound worse. I bet. This is a guess. My guess is that playing it through the screen share shit is going to like sum to mono, and it's going to get like, you know, there's going to be bandwidth issues. It's probably going to sound bad. So for those watching at home, if you're listening to the work that these people submitting, you're thinking like, this just sounds like shit, you got to round up a little bit. We got to assume that that's some of the problem is just the streaming interface. I don't think I'm going to hear the issue. You might hear the issue. That's number one. Number two is, I'm going to try to give you constructive criticism, but before I even say anything, also, I haven't listened to it yet either. I saved it. Everything I play, I'm going to be hearing for the first time with you. You know, I saved it for marriage. That's, you know, I'll say it again. I saved it for marriage. Okay, cool. So what was I saying? Right. I'm going to be hearing it for the first time. I'm going to try to give you criticism that is like, you know, constructive, but I just want to say like, you know, what right do I have? Like, what do I know? Why are you going to take my advice? You know, I can't do anything for you. I'm not in the position to like give you the record deal or like put you on tour with Five Finger Death Punch or like, you know, give you the recording budget or like, you know, tell Clear Channel to put your song on the Dwayne Reed in-store playlist. I can't do anything for you, you know? So all I can do is like tell you what I think is cool and tell you what I think could be cooler. But like, why would I even be right? You know what I mean? I mean, I listen to your shit the way I listen to my shit. And like, how good is my shit? You know, I mean, I think it's cool. I like it. I'm happy with it. You know, last month, the song I co-wrote got an Apple commercial. That was kind of cool. But, you know, that's it. Like, we live in a world that has like hit makers, and I'm not one of them. So I'll give you my advice, but this was because like it's something people thought would be fun to do, not because I think I'm really an authority here. All right. Okay. Having said that, then let's try it. Abandon. I'm just gonna abandon this. You can hear me now, right? Tell me if you can hear me now. I think the audio thing is like too annoying and weird, and people are saying it's like if they can hear it, they're saying that it sounds bad. And I don't want to play people's music where it sounds like that terrible. So at this point, I'd like to do a formal apology for a couple things. This is going to be like a two-part apology. The first part is I'm sorry for having my live stream come to a grinding halt plagued by technical difficulties. That was sort of bad. That was like very ineffectual and weak. So I apologize for being ineffectual and weak. Remember earlier when there was that guy who was like, he said something crazy. He was like, I love basking in your hyper masculine radiance. That's over. that ended. That guy hates me now. I lost that. I was a guy who was once referred to as having like hyper masculine radiance. I lost that when I nuked my own live stream by being an ineffectual idiot. And then the second part of the apology is for the people who I said I would listen to your stuff. I didn't think it would be this fucked up. I thought I could just check the box, do the screen share, we could listen to it. I'll either find a better way to do it and we'll do it next time, or I'll just listen to it and email you what I think. Sorry about that. In the meantime, let's just get back into the show. Let's just talk about some bullshit. If you have any Ask Me Anything questions you want to type it in the chat, now is your time. Nothing is more masculine than being overconfident and fucking it up. From Razark. Razark, man, always a valuable addition to these live streams. Thank you. That's hysterical. What I am going to do now is, though, take the headphones off. I just don't need those. Nothing changed. That's why I don't understand why people wear headphones in live streams. To me, it's just like this is one of those times where ornament is crime is right. Where in New Jersey are you from, and what was it like growing up there? Oh, that's a fun one. I'm from Bergen County. That's like the part that's like right over the George Washington Bridge. I'm from a town called Leonia. It's like pretty small, but it's very near the George Washington Bridge. What was it like going up there? I mean, to be honest with you, like I've tried to kind of convey this in some of the videos. You know what I mean? Like there'll be a part in the video where I just show like a bunch of images of parking lots of shopping malls. Like that's kind of how I felt about it. You know, it felt like I was just standing in this giant parking lot of malls. And at first it's like, well, that's terrible. It's like alienated and lonely and like artificial and gross. But at a certain point, it's like, it could be that, but you still got to live here for a while. So like, could you also see it as like maybe being beautiful? Is that an option? And I switched to that at a certain point. I tried to see the sort of weirdly artificial fakeness of it as like also beautiful. And then I was like, oh yeah, that works. So that's kind of how I feel about it. That's kind of how I feel about it. Favorite Nintendo 64 game? That's a good one. I think it's probably Mario Kart 64, because in college, me and my friends played that a lot. We got really good. I believe we played Battle. Battle has less bullshit, I think. The race is like the further back you go, the more the items try to give you lightning bolts and shit so that you can catch back up. So it's like, it's kind of silly. Like I feel like the racing in that game is a little bit just sort of gaming the item distribution. But in battle, it's like they cut out all the cheap items, and then the rest of the items are just random. And I feel like it's more a contest of skill. So we started playing battle a lot, and we got good. I considered us to have been like the NBA of Mario Kart 64 battle. So I choose Mario Kart 64 because of the social aspect. I have a lot of fond memories of playing that with my buddies in college. In terms of a game, just if I'm playing one player, GoldenEye comes to mind, and Ocarina of Time comes to mind. I mean, there's like some emotional shit that happens in Ocarina of Time. Like that game can like affect you emotionally in a way I admire. And GoldenEye was just a sensation. GoldenEye was like, I remember playing that at like birthday parties where like girls came. Like it took us, like, I'm talking about like there was, at least for me in my childhood where I was from, it was like you reach an age where like you might invite boys and girls to the birthday party, and the idea would be like sit around and awkwardly talk. This was like middle school era, and that started. And then at a certain point it was like, well, maybe we could play video games too. And normally that would just like alienate the girls, because like then it would become competitive and annoying. I mean, this was also at a time when like girls didn't play video games as much, which I'm sure was the result of like, discrimination and like latent sexist forces in the society. I'm not justifying any of this. I'm just saying like, because we lived in a flawed world, a lot of times guys would ruin their own birthday parties by like playing video games and not talking to girls, right? It was a mistake every time. But I remember then GoldenEye came out and like everybody wanted to play it, like girls wanted to play it. And I was like, that's a fucking powerful game right there. That's kind of amazing. Now maybe that's just my perspective, maybe that's a distortion of how everybody else was going through life. That could be the case. I just remember noticing that like GoldenEye was so undeniable that it transcended the whatever sort of weird sexist divisions were existing in the N64 era among middle schoolers. And then I like that one of these guys said 1080 snowboarding. Where is that guy? Yeah, this dude, Jeremy Anderson. First of all, great last name. Jeremy Anderson is like 1080 snowboarding. That's funny to me. 1080 snowboarding was one of those games that like it had a moment because it was early in the Nintendo 64 release cycle. So like Nintendo 64 comes out, it's a huge fucking deal because it's 64 bits, and there weren't a million games right away. So like you sort of had to fuck with the games that were out at the beginning, like Wave Race 64. Nobody really stuck with that game, but there was a time when like it was one of a few, so we had to play it. And 1080 snowboarding was also one of those. But also the thing I remember about 1080 snowboarding is that it had this sort of weird like aspirational quality, that it was like, this is what cool older hot people look like from the point of view of middle school kids. You know what I mean? There's like, they're wearing Oakleys and they're hanging out in the lodge and they've got like LA haircuts. Like to me, the most interesting thing about 1080 snowboarding is the way it like tried to fulfill this certain like insane hallucination among middle schoolers of like, this is what like grown-ups would be like who are having sex. They're going to be snowboarders. They're going to wear Oakleys. They're going to have haircut. They're going to hang out in a ski lodge. Like that to me is the most interesting thing about 1080. So yeah. All right. Go-to car character. For me, it was Donkey Kong. I always played as Donkey Kong. I also liked Bowser, but for some reason I just picked Donkey Kong and stuck with it. I felt like he was sort of like, he's like, Donkey Kong is like sort of the original villain, right? But on the other hand, it was just like a monkey too. You know what I mean? Like maybe he was just trying to mind his own business. I mean, I guess in the original game, he's like, he kidnaps the princess. So that's not a great look. That's not a great look for the Donkey Kong players, that he was like a, like a sex predator of some kind. Don't like that. But on the other hand, like, do we really know that he was doing that? Like maybe he was just a monkey minding his own business, and then Mario was like spread the lie that he was trying to kidnap the princess, and then he used that to like go as a pretext for terrorizing Donkey Kong. I mean, stuff like that does happen in the real world. So maybe Donkey, but then it's also weird that like whichever versions of those is true, he was just invited to participate in Mario Kart. We were like, can we invite Donkey Kong? He's either a sex predator or he's just an innocent creature that we lied and said was a sex predator. In either of those, it seems like you don't want to invite him to the special cup. But then like, no, we can invite him. That's kind of the weird thing about the Mario universe. You know what I mean? It's like at the beginning of every game, it's like, well, shit's fucked up. Bowser's trying to kill everybody. But then when it's time for Mario Party, it's like, yeah, of course Bowser's going to be there. What kind of party would it be if we didn't have Bowser? That's funny to me. Okay. Fun fact, the original Gran Turismo physics was initially developed for Mario Kart 64. I don't even know what that means, but that's fascinating. Right, yeah, this guy gets it. Playing single player Turok to the girls while boys watch. Yeah, that's like, I had that experience as a kid. I definitely had that. Wave Race was not rad. Yeah, but it was there. It had its time. That's the funny thing. It like had a moment just for being there in the beginning, All right. Anyway, that was a great question. What else do we got? Do we have any more? Oh, here's one. Ivan, how'd you meet the guys in Farmer, and did you record your stuff remotely or work with the vast? Oh, wow. That's like such an informed question about. All right. So Farmer is a band that consists of Jeff Stanfield and Jeff Taylor, and then a bunch of other people who like they brought in as collaborators, some of whom include Tim LaFave. Dave Matthews played on a couple things. There was Matt, the drummer in Room 5, was on it. There's the singer. Jeff did most of the vocals, but it was a cool project. I was involved too because I know Jeff Stanfield also produced. He's been my producer, so I was involved, and it was awesome. It was a fun record to be on. The material was super cool. Everybody was like contributing cool stuff to it. To answer your, so that's how I got involved. Because I know Jeff Stanfield. He had produced. I talked about being in that band earlier called Sweet Fix. He produced our big record, and then when I started doing Cyber Attack, he produced the first Cyber Attack record. He's helping me with the second one. You know, we've known each other for a while. So there was like a lot of recording sessions spread out over time, but there was like one sort of intense week where a bunch of people got together at the studio called the Vast. I did some stuff at Avast, and I did some stuff on my own. And then I like, you know, sent them. I was like working on overdubs and sending them in. It was cool to be at Avast and like hang with everybody and do some spontaneous overdubs based on what other people were doing. That was a great vibe. I also think some of the stuff I ended up contributing, it was nice to be able to do it myself and sort of obsess over it. You know, I have a couple solos on that record. There's a solo in a song called Lefty. Like you might not even know is guitar. I'm using the C4 synth pedal, but I have a tone on it that is like, it's hard to know what instrument it is. If you listen to the song Lefty by Farmer, there's a solo in there that is me playing a guitar solo. It would have been hard for me to do that live just because like nobody was doing more than a couple takes. Like that's kind of how that session went down. Like everybody would just sort of get up, do their thing, hear the track, play it, do another one that's a little different, maybe do a third one that's a little bit different, you know, but nobody was like, oh, if you give me one more pass at that, I could do it better. It's like everybody was doing everything that was great, and it was just different choices. That solo I did for Lefty, it required takes. Like I like shred a little bit, and part of that solo is that I'm like fighting the pedal. You know, the C4 synth is a cool pedal, but it's like trying to track what you're doing and then like produce waveforms that follow it, you know? And there are ways you can glitch it out and like fuck up the detection. And sometimes it sounds cool, but sometimes it doesn't. And so that solo, I like played it phrase to phrase to phrase. And for a lot of the takes, it was just like, no, that I wanted to do the other thing. And then I would try it again. I was like, no, I wanted to do the other thing. And then I'll play it again. I'll be like, no, I want to do it. I wanted to do the other thing. And like, that's not the kind of session we were doing at Avast. So it would have just sort of like slowed things down. It sort of would have ruined the experience, much like the way my attempt to play those songs earlier in this live stream ruined that experience. It would have been like that at Vast if I tried to record a solo like that. So I was glad I was able to contribute some stuff on my own that also required me to be a little bit anti-spontaneous like that, you know, like do 100 takes or something and then like comp it together to make it sound good. But thanks for the question. I'm glad you like or know enough about Farmer to even be able to ask a question that detailed. Thank you. Which Waza Craft pedal do you wish Boss would release? You know, to me, the real Waza thing is just like they introduce a cool pedal that is back. The new Waza modes, I haven't played all the Waza pedals, but like the Boss CE2 Waza, the Waza mode to me is like not so much better than the normal mode, you know. I think the best thing about Waza pedals is that they're just like Boss pedals, and Boss pedals generally sound good. The new updated modes, I can't think of any I played where I was like, wow, that new updated mode changes everything. So I would just, my vote would just be like, let's bring a pedal back that just to have the pedal back, you know. It's, I don't even really, to me it's like the question I'll answer is like, which Boss pedal do you wish would be reissued? The Waza thing to me is like, that's fun and cool, but it never seems essential to me. So having said that, maybe the slow gear is that's out of production, right? I don't know as much about the Boss, like the cool discontinued Boss stuff, as I wish I did. If it's the Boss slow gear, like not a stupid answer, that's discontinued. That might be the answer. That's a cool one. I'm not great at solos. Where would a good place to start be to start making interesting solos? I think it can be good to try to learn to play solos along with the record that you like. I mean, I did that a lot. I'd spent a lot of time playing along to records where it would be like, Jimi Hendrix, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne. Um, those are the kinds of solos I loved. I would learn them, or I would have my guitar teacher help me learn them, and then I I would practice by playing along to the record. I mean, it's fun, especially at that age. It's exciting to like try to match the record, and to hear yourself do it. And it'll also force you to learn whatever techniques or the techniques you want to be able to do. I mean, like I think having a good bend vibrato is like essential. I think being able to bend a note and then hit the pitch and then vibrato it well is like something you're supposed to be able to do if you're a guitar player. Some people can't do it, some people don't do it, and some people think it sounds old fashioned and stupid. So I'm not saying you have to learn to do that if you don't want to, especially since you're not paying me to be your guitar teacher. But I always wanted to do that, and so that's why I was listening to Jimi Hendrix and AC/DC and Randy Rhoads. So if you sort of pick a favorite guitar solo and then try to learn it, that might be a good way to start. Now, if you're not a great lead player and you pick something bananas, you got to sort of ramp yourself up. I don't know. Maybe try to pick an easy one or something. But I think looking at the solos you yourself love, I think is a good place to start. All right, I hope that helps. I'm getting a Fuzz factory in a few days. What are some neat things to try first with other kinds of pedals? Well, I spent some time with the Fuzz. I have a video about Fuzz pedals, and I use the Fuzz factory in it. So I would say watch that video and try to steal the stuff I talk about in it. I have a video called Fuzz How to Be Creative, and I only use the Fuzz factory for one of the 5 pro tips, but it could probably do a lot of what's in that video. You could probably use the Fuzz factory and use the knobs and find a setting to copy most of what I do with other pedals in that video. So I would say start there. I hope that helps. All right, cool. What is bebop? Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. Bebop is a style of jazz that is sort of considered to be like the highest level of jazz. Now, some people disagree with that, but like bebop is a style of jazz that was like John Coltrane and like Dizzy Gillespie and like I think young Miles Davis, right? And Charlie Parker. That was like I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna like try to explain this, but I'm not an expert, and people watching will probably know better than me. So I'm gonna like try to do this, and then feel free to correct what I'm saying as I go if I get it wrong. Prior to bebop, like jazz was sort of like playing standards, which were these songs that were sort of from like the soundtracks to popular movies and musicals. Like Tin Pan Alley material type stuff, like these songs that had sort of rich chord progressions and nice melodies. Jazz was like you would play those, the band would play it. People would be like, "Oh, I know what song that is." They'd hear it, they'd hear the melody, and then there would be a part where people in the band sort of solo over it, and they would like improvise. They would take the chord progression, and then instead of playing the melody, they would make up their own thing. They would solo over it, right? The Louis Armstrong was like the godfather of jazz because he was the one who really pushed into like when you improvise, you can truly make up your own statement. And when you play a solo, you can like really do your own thing. You don't just have to sort of play the melody again with little embellishments. My understanding is that prior to him, when people improvised, they were just sort of taking the melody and doing variations on it rather than just like, no, I'm going to play my own thing. Okay. So then bebop was sort of this like escalation of that. There was like a new generation that was like, okay, standards, right? Well, what if we like played them faster just because it's like faster is cooler. Like, what if we played it faster? On some level, it's the same impulse where like thrash metal was like, what if we just played it faster? What if we took rock music and we just fucking like pushed the gas? Like there is just something kind of macho and exciting about that. So bebop was like, what if we played it faster and we decided we don't care if people can dance to it or not? There's a certain tempo that's so fast that like you can't really dance anymore. And bebop was like, we're not afraid of that. And then the other thing they were like is, what if we, when we improvise, like, what if we really start to play with some like tensions and dissonances? Like, what if we take the chord progression, but instead of just neatly sticking the notes that are going to sound cute over every chord, what if we sort of like get a little violent and play some shit that might sound kind of bad, but is like still connected a little bit in an abstract way? What if we introduce a certain amount of abstraction? So like the song, we push the notion of how recognizable the song is. It was sort of like the beginning of fucked up covers. It was like, what if we changed it? And so like people who know how to listen to this shit could tell that we're playing a standard, but like a lot of people might just not know what the fuck is going on. But then what if we like slipped in all these little hints that it actually was a standard, right? Like that was kind of the attitude of bebop. And so it was a lot more about the soloist and the improvisation than it was, we're going to play this nice song that people expect to hear, right? It was a little bit, the artistically, it was a little bit more about like challenging expectations and like having fun with fucking up the material than it was like, these people hired us to play at their wedding. You know what I mean? So people started playing like that. And then what happened is that that whole game about like, well, what if when we like soloed over the material, we like changed the chords a little bit, and we played stuff that like might sound like a clash. That sort of became the art form. Like the idea of what is and is not a clash got expanded, and like the notion of what counts as a tension and what counts as a resolution got extended. And like the bebop guys really added sophistication, and they added levels to like what counts as like, that's a yum and that's a yuck. And it was like heavily influential, and it's also hard to play. Like in order to be able to credibly among like trained jazz musicians, like being able to solo and improvise in a way that like sounds like you authentically understand bebop and can do, I can't do it, for instance. Like I sort of understand what it would sound like if you could do it, but like I myself can't just pick up a guitar and do it. It's something that requires immense training. You have to like study and devote your life to it. But then the thing is that like if you get good at being able to play bebop and then all you do is just like imitate that generation of musicians from like 80 years ago, like that's considered tacky. So you have to like spend a lot of time getting good at being able to do it, and then as soon as you can do it, you have to like not do it. You have to like then be original somehow. So bebop sort of exists as this like very high standard in jazz that's like the highest standard. And then ever since then, there's been, and also it was controversial. For instance, like Louis Armstrong is said to have hated it. Like he would tell people like, don't play the bebop shit when you're in my band. So it was controversial then, but then there have been a lot of people since then who also think that the sort of like any form of jazz that is not descended directly from it is also bullshit. You know what I mean? Like some people think fusion is bullshit because fusion is like trying to incorporate elements of funk or rock, and so it's like cheaper and dumb. And then there's like, smooth jazz or like new age jazz, and people think that's dumb because it's like, I mean, you could probably figure out for yourself by listening to it why people think that stuff is dumb. So bebop sort of exists as like this awesome, terrifying like standard of jazz performance that every jazz musician now has to sort of live in the shadow of. Okay, that's the best. I hope that was a good answer. I'm now gonna look in the comments to see if people are like, oh, you missed this part, or oh, that was a terrible answer, oh, that was good. Oh, look at this. Man, Ivan, you're one of the realest things on the internet. Thanks for letting me spam your stream like a goofy bitch. All good. You've been a valuable and constructive member of the chat so far. So happy to do it. Do you like Omar Rodriguez Lopez? I do. I don't like know those records top to bottom the way I know like a Van Halen record top to bottom, but I do like him. People ask me about him a lot too. I get this question a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think he's like creative and different and cool. So yes, the answer is yes. Oh, now I'm catching up. Oh, that was a long time ago. Right. Okay. People are like talking about bebop here. I just transcribe by ear. I don't write notation. Yeah, I'm not good at. I'm not good at notation either. This is a lot of the best takes on the thick of jazz. I think there might be a typo there. If you could give yourself one piece of creative advice. Oh, dude, we addressed this. This was from the beginning. I'm sorry. I talked about this. You're going to have to back up. I think I gave a good answer. I'm not going to try to touch it again. I think I might just stick with microwaved hot dogs. That's funny. I can sort of relate to that. I know what you're saying. I understand the feeling behind this. Have you played any of Universal Audio's amp modelers? No. I have the Dream 65 and I love it. My Lion Marshall is coming tomorrow. Yeah, I hear people talk about this all the time. I haven't gotten any of that stuff. I am very happy with the Strymon Iridium. I believe in amp modelers. Like I'm not like opposed to it. I just don't have any of that stuff. I'm sure it's cool. I could believe it's cool. I popped out for a bit. Did you answer this? What album or artist did you hate before going to love? Oh, that's a good one. Let me think about this for a second. I know I have an answer. I don't think about this all the time, but I know I have one that I hated before I loved. That's really fun. Yeah, I know I have one. Let me think about this. Not to just bring a bunch more dead air into the live stream, but this is a fun one. That I hated before I started to love. I mean, there's certain things that like I don't love, but I sort of admire for being like the first thing that comes to mind is not a musical example, but like I personally don't think that Andy Kaufman was like funny. Like I've never watched any Andy Kaufman thing that made me laugh. So on one level, like since he was a comedian, I don't like him. You know what I mean? Like, how could you possibly like a comedian that doesn't actually make you laugh? It's a big problem. But he was doing stuff that was like challenging the form of comedy. And he was like taking things in a direction that was like different and weird. And part of me is like, that's useful. Like that has a place. I mean, there's other comedians that I don't think are funny that I just don't think are funny. Like, I don't think like Jeff Foxworthy is that funny. I don't know. It doesn't make me laugh that much. But it's also not super clear to me that like the form of comedy would be different had he not come along. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much value we put on jokes in the structure of you may be a blank if you blank, right? I mean, he's the guy who invented like you may be a redneck if, and he proved that that's like a bottomless gold mine, So if you consider that to be like an indispensable part of the form of comedy, then maybe Jeff Foxworthy is a bad example. Or like, oh, here's a better example. I don't think Lewis Black is funny. I mean, I don't know why he came into my mind because like I haven't heard or thought about him in like 10 years. But I don't think Lewis Black's stand-up is funny. Like he just gets up there and sounds pissed off. But I don't think any of the jokes are that funny. I don't think any of his angles are that good. None of it's that surprising. And all of it is just like, I'm in a bad mood. And I don't think being in a bad mood is that funny, right? I started this live stream by saying whatever happened to the strong silent type. So you can imagine how useless to me Lewis Black is. I also don't think him not being funny is like giving us anything to think about. Whereas like Andy Kaufman, he does give you something to think about. You know what I mean? Like, so I that's not an example of going from something I hate to something I love, but there is like regard, or like I sort of see that as being useful in a way. All right. Yeah, see, Lewis Black just sounds like a pissed off dad. I mean, right. And you know what I mean? It's like you could just piss off your own dad if that's what you need. You know what I mean? You don't really need to spend money on the Lewis Black concert ticket. You just call your dad and be like, Dad, I don't know how to change a tire because I'm a stupid millennial, and then see what your dad says. And you just got whatever you get on the other end of that is like as good as a Lewis Black comedy special, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I think that's my answer. I mean, there was a while when I also didn't really. I guess maybe. So when I was a kid, I was like a small child when Nirvana was happening. And in the beginning, Nirvana was just like music that was in the world that I heard all the time because I listened to the radio all the time and I liked it and I thought it was cool. I was just like, yeah, Nirvana's a band. I like bands. Cool. Um, then I got a little bit older and I kind of started going back and checking out the eras of rock that came before my time. And I got into a big, like, late 70s hard rock thing. That, I mean, in some sense, that is still some of my favorite music ever made. Like the era of Bon Scott, AC/DC, David Lee Roth, Van Halen, Thin Lizzy, Cheap Trick, like those bands sort of became like my favorite thing ever. Um, and there was a sense in which like those bands kind of inspired the 80s and shred. And then there was a sense in which grunge kind of killed that. And Nirvana was like grunge band number one. And so there was a while, maybe like a year and a half, where I was like pretentious and annoying as like a eighth grader, where I was like, Nirvana actually killed good rock music. That was like a take I had at one time. I'm not proud of it. I was like, yeah, Nirvana actually ruined everything. Um, but then I remember there's like a lot of grunge music that I actually do like, and that I do think is also like that people were shredding just in a kind of a different way. You know what I mean? Like the Matt Cameron drum performances in most Soundgarden songs are like totally shreddy. And I think Jerry Cantrell's solos in Alice in Chains are like cool. Those are like real guitar solos. And even with Nirvana, Dave Grohl was like shredding nonstop. He's, that guy can shred. So, and then also through it all, the Smashing Pumpkins have always been one of my favorite bands, and that band had a sort of like such a devotion to kind of like elaborate, um, this like very rich investment in like the musicianship behind what they were doing, that they were like even criticized for it by Kim Gordon and stuff like that. So then I was like, well, grunge isn't really just like, there is a sort of like musical ornament happening in grunge. So like what I was saying maybe doesn't really work. And then the final, the sort of like final phase of my transformation was when I was like, also I do like Nirvana. Like I know I was sort of annoying back there for a second, but I do like Nirvana. I think the songs are cool. I think Kurt Cobain's voice is cool. Like I don't know why I needed to be uptight about that. I'm sorry. And then the final turn was when I like just rediscovered that guitar solo in Bloom is like awesome. Like I already rehabilitated myself enough to like Nirvana again. Again, the time when I didn't like Nirvana, it was like we're talking about like 16 months when I was like at an annoying age. But the final escape from that, me being annoying like that, was when I realized that the solo to the song In Bloom is just like so cool. It's like actually cool. You should listen to that solo. It's like very noisy and it's like sort of an anti solo, but it's played with like an aggression, and there's like note choices in it that I think are just like high level good. It's a little bit it's got like fuck you energy, sort of like the Andy Summers solo in the song Driven to Tears by the Police. Now, those are like very different guitar players. You know, like Andy Summers was like, you know, kind of a jazz guy underneath it all, and had like a major interest in like quartal harmony and stacking fourths and like, you know, trying to do some advanced stuff to push the instrument forward. And his solo in Driven to Tears is like kind of avant-garde and like kind of in your face. And Kurt Cobain, as far as I can tell, had like a very different upbringing and a very different set of influences as a guitar player. But I do think the way the solo, the like basic spirit and the sorts of choices he makes as a instrumentalist in the solo for In Bloom is like roughly equivalent to what Andy Summers does in Driven to Tears. So I love that guitar solo. And then once I realized there was like a Nirvana guitar solo that I liked, then I was like, it's embarrassing that I ever didn't like that band. So yeah, I think that's my answer to that question. Dude, look at this. Mike Wolf says, I'm late and I forgot to submit a tune for feedback. Oh, don't feel bad about that. The part where that happened was an unspeakable atrocity. That part of this live stream was real bad. I'm not even going to say why. You can try to go back and find it. See for yourself. But it's probably good that you didn't do that. Okay. Everybody, thanks for doing this. I always love doing these Ask Me Anythings. It's a joy. I'm sorry that the mixed reviews got fucked up. If you're someone who sent me a mixed review and I told you I was going to do it, just email me again. I'll make that right. Either I'll find a better way to do it on the next live stream, or I'll just listen to your stuff and I'll email you. So I apologize that part got fucked up, but everything else about this was fun. Thank you as always for being a part of this. Thanks for sticking with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.